Alrighty. We're back into it on match 2 of the friendly tournament. And with game 2 here, we've got Jim as the Zerg, and we've got Chad as the Protoss. Chad defended against a very aggressive rush out of Jim in game 1, where he just happened to have enough cannons together to defend against a bunch of Zerglings that came at him pretty quick. He had upgrades ahead of Jim that kind of drove the difference in, but it wasn't too bad. It was a very, very close opportunity for Jim to clinch the game out. Those rushes work like that. You either get them or you don't. Very, very 100% to none. In this game, we've got Jim getting a spawning pool up already. We see pylon down, no gateway yet. Gateway coming out for Chad now. One assimilator, one extractor. Couple drones out for Jim. We see Forge coming up. Fewer probes than we would necessarily like out of Chad. He could probably be building a couple more of these. Yeah, there we go. Natural expansion coming out. There's a rich mineral base here on this map that is in your natural that is forming a wall. So once you harvest this down, the wall opens up and your base is more vulnerable to attack from multiple locations. Jim expanding the other direction, that gives players an opportunity to make their units a little bit more aggressive because your units are spawning a little bit further forward, especially if you are Zerg. However, not having access to these extra minerals from this base, it might punish Jim. Depends. We could see a very, very early third base out of him. He rushed 4 bases in the last game to accelerate his production as Zerg. So it would be interesting to see what he does there. He does have 3 hatcheries up already, but he did not put the 3rd hatchery over by the rich mineral vein. He's got it in his main instead. We see photon cannon, 1-1 coming out, or shields and ground armor, not weapons, out of Chad here. Zealots getting made. No Zerglings for Jim yet, despite the early spawning pool. We haven't seen any of our Protoss players so far chrono boosting their Nexus or any of their other buildings in order to gain construction speed or production speed. Either of those things. This will speed up everything on the abilities. Oh, we're getting a slight blip here. One moment. Chad disconnected for half a second, but it looks like he's back. A weird little internet blip. We'll hope that that quarter second doesn't cause any problems. Oh, hold on, it's happening again. Okay, we're gonna see. We're gonna make sure that Chad is okay here. He looks like he is fine and functioning. All right. No defensive units out of Jim yet here. Chad's only got a couple of military units, but we saw last time how effective zealots are against Zerglings. Chad's got 2 zealots moving out. He could be scouting with these. He might be getting aggressive. It's hard to tell. Fourth hatchery going up for Jim. He's got Mutalisks going up. No Zerglings. He's going straight for Mutalisks. This is going to be very, very good into a couple of Zealots. Chad has 3 Zealots now sitting here. There's no way to attack from this angle, so he's going to need to walk up and around and into the natural over here, at least for a little while. He's going to realize this very shortly. Yep, okay. So he sees that. Jim has Mutalisk, and these Mutalisks are going to be very, very effective against these Zealots. He has no way to actually win this fight. Chad can only really run away. But Mutalisks are very fast, so he's just going to bleed these units right out. Let's see if Chad is reacting at all. He's got sentries out. Those will do ground to air. So he can actually do some damage to whatever Jim's forces look like. Jim has a Corruptor going up, so that he can defend against Phoenixes coming out of Chad potentially here. These Mutalisks clean up those couple of Zealots, and Jim is ahead just a little bit. He's attacking workers now. He's got damage out on these photon cannons. There's 2 photon cannons up in the main here, though. More getting built. And Jim is into the worker line with his Mutalisks. Ooh, fantastic. Chad did not have enough to deal with a couple of Mutalisks this early. These couple of photon cannons are going to defend, so he's not going to lose everything, but he did get hit significantly. We see Phoenix coming out to defend against some of these Mutalisks, but one more Mutalisk going in on the natural here. You see 4 more Mutalisks coming out of Jim. Alrighty. And the Mutalisks have been cleaned up that were attacking, but Chad has lost a ton of workers here. He's down about, looks like 450 resources. And his income has been crippled. He's down to about a third of Jim's income, which means that Jim is just skyrocketing ahead in material right now. He needs to be utilizing his many bases that he has access to be producing units and spending this. He needs a lot more overlords. He's getting supply capped at this point. But we could see a very solid attack coming out of him if he builds enough Mutalisks and enough Corruptors to defend against these Phoenixes that are coming out of Chad, because these Phoenixes obliterate Mutalisks. They have extra damage versus light flying units, which are what Mutalisks are made of. Jim with a big stockpile of resources here. There's 2 random military units here that are just kind of chilling, kind of hanging out, not fighting each other. Corruptor can't attack a sentry. Sentry can attack a Corruptor. But the Corruptor's much faster. Jim has a lot of resources in the bank, but we see that Chad does not have too many sitting around, so he must be producing very aggressively here. We see he's got 111. Let's see if Jim has got an evolution chamber up anywhere. We do not see any upgrades out of Jim. Oh, there, he does have an evolution chamber. He's researching Armor 1, but could use weapons and missile attacks also. He needs to get some extractors up and functioning. These Phoenix is coming around now, looking to see if they can pick off any air units. There's only a couple of Mutalisks floating around right now, so these are going to get cleaned up pretty quickly by these Phoenixes. Phoenixes can't really do much, though, besides kill these couple of units. Oh, there's a group of Mutalisks that got in around. I missed these. We got a group of Mutalisks that have flown in and are flying around. They're getting picked up by these photon cannons fairly quickly. And the Phoenixes are going to come in to help deal with the extra harassment. This is a common issue with Mutalisks, is that they're fairly squishy and they're not actually good in combat against a lot of units. So they're very, very good at harassment. But we're seeing now that if you bleed too many of them, they end up not being worth it, especially when there's this many photon cannons. Chad has been very aggressively building turrets that help defend pretty well against these kind of attacks from the Zergs. He's buying himself time to get ahead on unit quality. See a fleet beacon coming out. We can see some carriers shortly. Bunch of Mutalisks. We need to see a lot of more Corruptors if we're going to actually win the air fights here. But Corruptors are also expensive. Mutalisks cost 200 resources apiece, so they're very, very expensive. We see flyer attacks getting upgraded, missile attacks getting upgraded. And we've got a carrier coming out for Chad here. He is going to go for a carrier game. Carriers are very, very, very expensive. So you need to be very careful about the way that you use them. He's got a lot of Phoenixes to defend against Corruptors, which are one of the main things that can actually deal with this with a carrier rush. We see these Mutalisks coming around. They're going to go for some harassment here on the natural base, hopefully. Yep, we see that. He's going to clear out this mineral line very, very quickly. And then hopefully get away in time. Oh, he's actually got enough to fight these Phoenixes. Okay. And look at that. Mutalisks are just really crazy sometimes. They do a lot of damage. It's pretty awesome. They're expensive for a reason. We see him coming in to harass on this mineral line. He's going to actually try to take out the photon cannons. Nope, he's switching to the Phoenixes. That's a much more concrete play. But these photon cannons are just shredding him. He needs to find something more substantial to deal with this core base. The resource graph right now shows that Jim has lost fewer units, but a lot more resources. But we do know that because a lot of the units that Chad has been losing have been his workers, this resource count is not very high on this chart, but he has been losing a ton of value from just his income track. Jim is up about 7,000 minerals in his bank. So he really, really needs to be focused on using his APM to drive this advantage. If he can manage to spend these 7,000 resources and throw them at Chad, it will be fairly devastating. But we see a lot of larvae sitting around. He needs more overlords. He needs definitely more Mutalisks. They're doing the job, but he needs to have like 15 to 20 of them to actually deal with this pile of 5 photon cannons sitting here. Carriers coming up and out. Carriers are extremely expensive at 600 resources apiece, and then you fill them with interceptors that cost 15 minerals apiece. So this is how Chad is managing to spend all of his resources that he's got up. Both players at 3 bases. Nope, that's not true. Chad has 3 bases. Jim is at 5 hatcheries right now. So we see these Mutalisks coming out very, very rapidly. Jim a little choked on gas. These carriers are all up. But interceptors are not exactly strong enough to deal with Mutalisks. Especially because they're a bunch of really, really small units. And Mutalisks have ricochet attacks. So they will just combo chain through all of the interceptors and kill them very quickly, leaving the carriers largely defenseless. We see 6th base coming out of Jim now. Jim is a full double infrastructure ahead. These very aggressive attacks have been paying off. Chad building more photon cannons around his natural, but there's barely enough minerals here to make it worth it. Jim getting flyer attacks 2 up. This is a very, very large force of Mutalisks. They will have a difficult time into the photon cannon piles, but it's certainly enough to actually do damage to them. He cannot fight the carriers in this pile. If he attacks this here, he's going to lose all of his units. Okay, and we see these photon cannons actually going down now. Jim moving away. He spotted the expansion out of Chad here, so he's going to clean that up real quick. Says, no, you cannot have more bases than you have right now. It's a slow bleed, but this is probably going to be enough to let Jim secure this game. As long as he's got more stuff going on at home. He's moving these Mutalisks very effectively. These carriers are super slow. Big, big, slow units. So Jim is just moving around, making sure that whenever the carriers get over to whatever base he's attacking, that he just moves the Mutalisks around. Oh, we see 1 carrier going down. 2 carriers down. This photon cannon getting a little extra damage. Oh, he needs to finish that carrier off. Those Mutalisks surviving are not worth it. Oof. Leaves the carrier just barely, barely alive. These carriers now coming in to counterattack. Jim will probably have enough Mutalisks up and available to him if he's just spamming Mutalisks at every one of his hatcheries. But it's going to be really close. These carriers can do a lot of damage when they actually start attacking stuff. We saw him just clean up that full force of Mutalisks very quickly. Phoenix taking damage from the Queen. 3 Mutalisks are enough to kill 1 Phoenix for sure. This one carrier is really, really low, but it's just chewing up the base now. 6 Mutalisks could kill this one last carrier that's at low health. Yep, we're going to see that go down. It's a good pickup. Stem the bleeding just a little bit here. This layer is not dead, so Jim has more units getting produced. Jim has so many resources in the bank that it does not matter that he's losing his worker lines here right now. Chad needs to destroy the hatcheries in order to actually survive. We see more carriers coming out of Chad, though, in the back. Oh, and Jim's going to just call it there. Tough game. Tough game. The photon cannons took a lot out of Jim, and wasn't quite enough to stabilize against all of the carriers that he had coming at him. Congratulations on winning the winning match 2 of our friendly tournament. This Chad is now going to fight against whoever wins our blind tournament. So we're a couple games off finishing up their blind tournament, and then we'll be back with Chad's next match into the friendly tournament. Hello. Yeah, that was a crazy game. That was more skirmishing than we've had in every